I'm here today with Minister Butler to announce the government's new policy on the future of aged care. We need a new aged care system for 4 reasons. First, Australians are living longer. Compared with the days when the old age pension first started, Australians live 25 years longer. Now that's a great thing, it's a fantastic thing. It means Australians get the opportunity to enjoy longer lives, something that should always be viewed as an asset for our nation. But it does have implications for how we run aged care. Second, we know the proportion of Australians who will be older is changing too. We are an ageing society, so our aged care system has to recognise that. Third, we now have a new generation moving into retirement, the baby boomers, who will clearly want more options and choices than older Australians have sought in the past. The baby boomers changed what it meant to be a teenager, they've shaped our life, changed what it's meant to be an adult Australian, and they will change our conception of ageing as well. And fourth, the current system has problems that need to be addressed. Now, some people talk about a crisis in aged care. There are great people working in aged care, but there are huge problems too. And those problems include that there are not enough funded care packages for those who want to live independently in their own home. To give you just one statistic on that, last year 24,000 applications were received for community care packages, less than 2,000 were provided. Second, the system currently of payments is unfair. Average pensioners are subsidising the accommodation and care costs of people earning many times what they do. Third, families can't get the information they need to make difficult choices. And fourth, and perhaps most disturbingly of all, 40% of older Australians are forced into emergency fire sales of their homes in order to raise the money to pay for care, with bonds that can cost as much as $2.5 million and bear no resemblance to the cost of accommodation. So we need to change the system. And the policy that I am announcing with Minister Butler today is one that honours the rights and dignities of older Australians. It is built on the work of the Productivity Commission that we requested, and of course it's informed by the conversations Minister Butler has had intensively with stakeholders and with 4,000 Australians around the country, older Australians and their loved ones. The system that we announced today is fairer and simpler. It will give older Australians and their families greater choice and greater control than they've had in the past. It will mean that if you want a nursing home place, we will make it easier for you to get one. If you want care in the home, we will make it easier for you to get that care. More people will get to keep their home and more people will get to stay in their home. And it will put our aged care system on a sustainable footing so that it can provide the kind of care that Australians expect and deserve as our population changes. So what's at the centre of this package? Well, 2 things. Making sure older Australians can stay longer in the home, like so many of them want to, and second, making sure older Australians and their families aren't forced into emergency fire sales of their family home at a time of life that's already difficult and that can be made heartbreaking if you need to face an emergency fire sale of your home. So the measures we are announcing today are as follows. To make it easier for older Australians to stay in their home and receive the care they need, we will double home care packages from 59,876 to almost 100,000. We will provide new tailored care packages to people receiving home care and new funding for dementia care. And we will cap costs so that full pensioners pay no more than a basic fee and others have caps as well, depending on their ability to pay. We will also make sure that more people get to keep their family home and prevent the fire sales that I've referred to. We'll do that by providing more choice about how to pay for care. Instead of a bond up to $2.6 million and bearing no resemblance to the actual cost of accommodation, you will be able to pay through a lump sum or a periodic payment or a combination of both, whatever you choose. People will also have longer to make that choice, with a cooling off period introduced so that they can take up their aged care place and then think about the best way to pay. And you'll have longer to pay if you need it and longer to think about how to do it. There will also be a cap on care costs, with no one paying more than $25,000 a year and no one paying more than $60,000 over a lifetime. And because these changes will increase the number of places, people won't be forced to make sudden decisions under pressure because they're scared they'll lose the only place on offer. This means that people won't be forced into those emergency fire sales. For the first time in aged care, fairness will also get a look in. For too long, pensioners have had to subsidise those who are much better off than themselves. Under these changes, which I emphasise will only apply to new people entering care from the 1st of July 2014, ability to pay will be taken into account. Now, this recognises a simple reality that those who can support themselves and contribute a bit more should, and that we must look after the needs of those who can't. We're making these changes now so that we can start improving the system from 2012. But it's important that those older Australians who are receiving care in the community now or who are in a nursing home understand that these changes do not apply to them. Those in care will be grandfathered, they will not pay more. Now, these are all big changes and there's a lot of detail to be absorbed, and that's one reason too why we've got the start date of the 1st of July 2014. Now, I do want to say a word about funding. We are deliberately taking the opportunity today to make this announcement well in advance of the federal budget, because whilst this policy has some fiscal impacts, it's not a budget measure per se. There's some new funding here, but for the most part, the funding for the package comes from a combination of redirected funding and means testing. There are two reasons for that. Aged care funding must be sustainable into the future, and it must give providers an incentive to build places. We've got to have it viable and we've got to have it sustainable for the long term. In conclusion, can I say that when we've had policy debates about ageing in the past, losing the family home was the great fear of older Australians when those policy debates were had. Now, with this policy, the family home will be at the centre of how we will deliver aged care in the 21st century. I'll turn to Minister Butler for comments and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Today we announced the most sweeping reforms to our aged care system in almost 30 years. Transforming a system that was built in the 1980s around nursing homes to one whose primary objective is to support older Australians staying in their own home for as long as possible, and if at all possible, for the whole of their lives. In designing these reforms, as the Prime Minister indicated, we've listened very closely to the Productivity Commission and to stakeholders in the sector who have worked with us very closely in going over those recommendations one by one. But most importantly, we've listened intently to the views of older Australians themselves, views that have been put very forthrightly and very frankly to the conversations I've had with them over recent months that the Prime Minister referred to. Living Longer, Living Better is a package of major reform and $3.7 billion in new initiatives. We will create a new home support program that will consolidate the existing home and community care program, the respite program and a number of others, and give it 6% real growth in funding every year. We will create 2 new types of home care package and add, as the Prime Minister said, 40,000 new places over the coming 5 years, taking the expansion of home care packages under this government to 110%. All new home care packages and eventually all existing packages must be consumer directed, that is, built around the needs of the individual themselves rather than around the convenience of the provider. And we're committed to providing more support to carers, those family members who care for their loved ones in their own home day in and day out. In addition to a very significant expansion of respite entitlements to those carers, we're increasing funding to Carers Australia for counselling services by 50% over the coming 5 years. In spite of those reforms, though, designed to allow people to stay in their own home, many will still have to enter residential care for some period of their life. This package builds a fairer and a better residential care system. We will increase the benchmark accommodation charge to $52.80 per day from July 2014 for facilities that are built or significantly refurbished after today's date, clearing the bottleneck that exists on building new facilities in a number of states around the country, and also taking the increase in that charge to 130% under this government. We will also finally introduce a single system of accommodation charging, reflecting the principle of ageing in place, which for some years now has meant that older Australians no longer have to move between a hostel system on the one hand and a nursing home system as they become more frail. In doing this, we will deal with two significant causes of distress for many families in the current system. Firstly, the Prime Minister and I have spoken before about the excessive bonds being charged in parts of the sector, up to $2.6 million, as the Prime Minister said, amounts that bear no relationship to the cost of the accommodation being provided. The government is establishing an aged care financing authority, modelled on the Pharmaceutical Benefits Pricing Authority, that which, among other things, will approve accommodation charges and ensure that they reflect the value of the product being offered. Secondly, the Prime Minister and I have spoken about the fire sale of the family home faced by so many families who are expected to pay these bonds at a time of significant family crisis. The government will entrench real choice so that the consumer decides whether it suits them to pay their accommodation charge in a lump sum or on a rental-style periodic basis. This will be done through a statutory cooling-off period that allows the consumer and the family to make that decision after they have gained security of tenure over their place under the Aged Care Act. As a Labor government, it goes without saying that we will maintain a robust safety net so that places are available in all regions for older Australians without income or assets sufficient to pay for their own accommodation or their own care. At least a couple of times in the forums I held late last year, I had people come up to me and say something along the lines that one lady said, "I worked in aged care for 20 years and I thought I knew it back to front until I had to find a place for my mum. And for the life of me, I couldn't find the information that we needed as a family to make the best possible choice." The government will introduce a single gateway into the system in line with recommendations of the Productivity Commission and the National Aged Care Alliance. At its heart will be a new My Aged Care website, which will include information on aged care providers in your community, their services, their amenities, their staffing levels, their fees and charges, their history of complaints if they have any, and for the first time, a rating system. To better support older Australians in a system with much more choice, we're significantly expanding the National Aged Care Advocacy Program by 20%. We're extending quality accreditation from residential care into home care as well, and giving greater powers over complaints to the Independent Aged Care Commissioner, so that older Australians and their families can have the greatest possible confidence that they're receiving good quality care. The most important factor in the quality of care, however, is the number and the quality of staff, and this is undoubtedly the largest supply bottleneck in the system as well. Aged care workers are notoriously underpaid. A few weeks ago, both Gary Gray and I met with a number of union delegates in a facility in Western Australia. One woman there had worked at the facility for 19 years. She'd got her Certificate 3, then she'd got her Certificate 4, she'd done her first aid training, and she was required to do continuing professional development, but she was still earning well shy of $20 an hour. To start the process of getting fair and competitive wages into this system, we have adopted the model that was proposed by the National Aged Care Alliance. the government will contribute $1.2 billion to the implementation of a workforce compact to be agreed between providers, unions and consumer groups, and facilitated by an eminent person to be the subject of consultation between Minister Shorten and the President of Fair Work Australia. As described by NACA, the National Aged Care Alliance, this is a bridging arrangement to longer-term work that must be done on a wages structure that will allow a quality workforce to grow from 300,000 today to almost 1 million aged care workers in coming decades. Dementia is the largest cause of disability among older Australians by a long way, but it will become the largest cause of disability across Australia generally in the next few years. For that reason, Minister Plibersek and I will take a recommendation to the next meeting of State and Territory Health Ministers that dementia be added to the list of 6 national health priorities, including at the moment diseases such as cancer, cardiovascular disease and diabetes. As has already been reported, I think, in the media, our package includes a substantial investment of around $270 million in dementia investments to fight dementia in areas like extra care resources for people with dementia receiving aged care, better hospital systems, a quicker diagnosis by GPs, better support for the 15,000 younger Australians under 65 who live with dementia, and expanded support services for particular groups like people with dementia from a culturally and linguistically diverse background. The package also delivers better support to other groups with diverse needs and responds to a loud and clear message that I receive from older Australians that they want better guarantees around their control over the circumstances of their death. This package makes funding arrangements much fairer, but they also make them more sustainable in the face of soaring demand now and into the future. Feedback from older Australians through the Productivity Commission inquiry and my forums told us that they recognised the need to contribute to the cost of care, provided they have the financial capacity to do so, and provided that they're guaranteed that we're building a better system. The government has decided not to alter the treatment of the family home. We will, however, introduce more sustainable income testing arrangements, and in residential care, means testing of non-housing assets for people who enter care after the 1st of July 2014. Income testing will only apply to income above the maximum pension limit, which is currently around $23,500 for a single person. And as the Prime Minister said, we will put in place annual and for the first time lifetime caps that limit any person's contribution to a reasonable amount over 1 year or their lifetime. I'm happy to take any questions or throw to the Prime Minister first.
Okay.